Welcome back from the Lux Bride podcast. Today we're going to talk about sending out your invitations and all the details you need to know and take in consideration when you're creating them.
Yes, it's so fun. So firstly, the very basic is, why do you need them? Very interestingly, you need to inform all of your guests of your wedding day and that they're invited to your wedding day. It's also a really great way for them to figure out where they can find all of the details, or at least have the basic information of who, what, where, when, and why.
Yeah.
The next part is, who do you need to send them to? That's the part where things get a little bit more interesting. So we recommend that you start off by creating a list of immediate friends, family, and your bridal party. Elisa can contest to this because she's talked to so many couples about invitations now recently, thanks to her planning thing. But you are only sending out one invitation per family/household. So you might have like friends who has like a family of 4, right? You're not sending an invitation to all 4 of them, just to one of them, just to one of them as a whole, I should say.
Yeah.
So she gave the example, which I kind of loved. So if you have an aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins that live in the same house, they only get one invitation and is addressed to all of them, like their last name, family. So like if it was like the Smith family, as an example. And after you figure out your list for immediate family, friends, and your bridal party, then we recommend that you create a B list. So that's where it's like more distant family, a little bit more distant friends. If you have coworkers that are coming, that's the B list of who gets invited. So just as an overall example, if you have like 100 guests coming in total, you may only send out about 50 invitations, which is a very big difference based on the number of people that are coming, which is also why you can save a little bit of money too. And we have had couples who have tried to send out an invitation to each individual person. That can get very, very costly very quickly. And then as a general recommendation, especially with COVID and all of that stuff, we recommend that you order 10 to 20 extra invitations, just in case like you need to send out another one, something gets lost, your photographer, me, wants to photograph 2 of them, so I require 2, things like that. And you also might want to keep them yourself. So if you're sending all of them out, you don't have any to keep and save for later.
Mm-hmm.
So Elisa, do you want to go into what should be on them?
Yeah. So next is going to be, what do you put on them? And the basics are the date, the time, ceremony location, reception location, if it's a separate facility, like that they have to drive to, or you can simply say reception to follow if it's on the same property. Both couples' first and last name. A lot of people have been doing just their first name. You need to make it formal. You need to have first and last name. And then after that, your wedding website, because that's going to be like a main source of information. Or if you're going to do electronic RSVPs, you need to have that website on your invitation, whether at the bottom or the back side of it. And then you also need to have on your invitation, a lot of people don't have this, you need to note when you need RSVP by and the date that you need it by.
So necessary.
Usually you want to make it known that you need your RSVPs within 45 to 30 days before your wedding day. And I do that because if you say 45 days before your wedding day, you need to give all of your caterers and all of your vendors your guest count, your venue, if they're doing tables and chairs or rental company, your caterer, your florist for table number, like amounts of centerpieces for your table designs. You need to let them all know by 1 month prior. So if you give yourself an extra 10 to 15 days to try to contact people that you haven't heard from or that's still coming in the mail, you've got that time to be able to include that and not feel rushed. So that's why I make that suggestion. A lot of people are thinking that they're going to get them 2 weeks before their wedding date. That's too late. You need to do it a month. So 30 days or 45 days before your wedding day. So that way you can accommodate everybody properly.
And would you actually recommend 45 days? Probably more so in case you have to go track people down?
Yeah, I think the 45 to 40 days is kind of the perfect timing. The 30 days is way too tight timing. Nowadays, right now, because of COVID, some venues are allowing to give your information the 3 weeks or 2 weeks before. So people are being a little bit more lenient and accommodating, but I don't know how long that is going to last. I know a lot of caterers right now are doing 2 weeks before as well, because you already have paid a large some people have to do a 50% deposit or like a set amount of like $1,000 or $2,000. So you've already paid a good deposit. So for them, it's just like those final numbers and details, and they're more relaxed about it in that aspect. So yeah, but I would suggest the 40 to 45 days before we need, like RSVP, due by, and then have the date on your invitation. Because if they send in the RSVP, or if they have the RSVP separated from the invitation, or if they lose the RSVP card, they still have the wedding website. They can go and electronically RSVP and the date that they need to do so by.
I love that.
So that's what you need to put on an invitation. The next thing is what else you can include with the invitation. So like what all is going to go in the envelope. That might be more than just your invite. Typically, you're going to have an RSVP card. You could have an itinerary, whether it's on the backside of the invite or as a separate insert. It just comes down to like what financially makes the most sense. I do think it's easier to put the invitation itinerary on the backside of the invitation. It's less paper, so it's going to have less weight when you're trying to mail it out. But it is nice to have them two separated as well, so they can take the itinerary with them in the car and go there if they don't bring the full invitation with them. So the next thing that's included with what's included with the invite. So on the RSVP card, there's a few things to note that are important to put on the RSVP card, whether it's a physical card that's being mailed back to you, or if it is going to be an electronic RSVP, you still need this information on there. The first one is either specific names pre-written on the RSVP card, or the family and the quantity of people. So you need to communicate what you need from them. So when you're doing the next few things that you're going to ask them, the first thing they're going to ask them is if they are attending. Please say yes or no. You're either going to tell them to check yes or no, or enter a quantity of people for yes and no. So for that household of your aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins, maybe it's just your aunt and uncle coming and your cousins can't. So they need to check it, but also write a quantity of how many people are attending. This is really important for you to know how many people to expect from them. The next one is going to be entree options. If it's buffet, you don't usually have to ask for this, but if it's plated, you're going to have to ask for if they want like beef or chicken, for instance, for them to choose. They need to write a quantity. Don't just check it. They need to say like 1 chicken, 1 beef, or 2 beef, or 2 chicken. They need to specify that for you. Last thing on the RSVP card is have an extra area and ask people to please note any food allergies or food restrictions so that they can be accommodated properly. They need to tell you now. I can't tell you how many weddings they never noted that they have a gluten allergy and there's gluten in like a sauce or a gravy. You need to communicate your needs, and you need to do that ahead of time, not on the wedding date while food's being served. So that's some of the things for the RSVP card that are also important to be paired with the invitation.
Yes, and then I think one of the other things is where do you get these any invitation printed from? And there are, of course, those people that we absolutely love, and we're actually going to link all of this in the show notes as well as in the blog, so you'll see that when it comes out. But some of our favorite custom calligraphers and invitation designers are right here in Michigan, and we absolutely love supporting them. So some of them include Sierra Claire, Banter and Charm, and Lettering by EK. And you can have their information linked in the show notes and in the blog. But sometimes we understand that's not the route that everyone wants to go. So if you want to go to like a bigger place and just type everything in yourself and design it yourself, that's totally fine. We recommend that you go to Minted, Zola, Paper Culture, which is actually a new one I had not heard of, but Elisa told me about, and I'm now looking it up because I think it's beautiful. Vistaprint can sometimes have really great deals, or you could print at FedEx and pick up at FedEx and use them as just a way of printing and shipping. So there are options there as well. Mm-hmm. And then within that though, because we had talked about it as well as part of our 10 ways to save money on your wedding. When it comes to paper goods, and especially stamps, that can get very expensive, and it's a part of the budget that not a lot of couples think about all the time. And so when you see that sticker shock of how much stamps cost, you're like, oh goodness, this is a lot of money sometimes.
Yeah.
So there are alternatives to a physical invitation, obviously that being digital. And that's especially great if you have international family or friends that are coming, because you want to get that information to them as soon as possible, so that way they can plan for accommodations, air traffic, renting a car, etc. Or even cross country. So like if you're getting married in Michigan, we're going to use that as an example, but you live in California, Hawaii, or Texas, or Alaska, and you're trying to like come this way. It's extra nice if you can give those people a little bit more time to plan their stay and how they travel there. So if you want to do a digital invitation, there are places that will allow you to do that as well. And that's a really great way of getting those RSVPs in anyways. So I wanted to put in that little note there, because sometimes like we obviously love the custom ones. I think that those are my favorite to photograph, are the custom invitations, but we understand that Minted or Zola has really great options, or sometimes digital is really, really good to go. So just keep that in mind as you're going through the invitation styling process.
Yes, absolutely. And some of those online places where you can order, you can also send them electronically through their services too.
Oh, yes.
For electronically, I forgot to like put that, to talk about that with as our notes on here, is sometimes you can send it electronically just via email, but then there's also places like Evite, Eventbrite. You can make a free event as well, make it your wedding. And what's nice about that is that you can send email or text messages, so it's very current if things change quickly. For invitations as well, because if they're not knowing who your email is, it's so hard to email nowadays. If you get one digit wrong, or if they don't know to expect one from you, they might not see it too. So it's nice to have those multiple forms of communication.
Thank you for adding that on. Yep.
Yeah, I thought that could be helpful if like different services on that. But I also know Minted, and I'm pretty sure Zola, they both have like electronic invitations, and like they have like a whole little system, because they also do wedding websites. So it's probably more through their wedding website that you can send those out electronically. Okay, so we're down to when to send them out, right?
Yes.
When do you send out the invitations? So to send them out, you need to have enough time of when you've ordered them. So we're going to talk about, you need to order your invitations 4 to 5 months prior to your wedding day. You need to give yourself extra time, because it could take you 1 to 2 weeks just to settle on a design and to get all the information input. Depending on if it's customized or not customized, it could take even longer than the 4 to 5 months. Like if you're going to somebody local, it could be 6 to 8 months for them. So just kind of have that on your radar. When you receive your invitations, I wanted to say to give yourself enough time to be able to take like a week or two to prep and fill all of the envelopes with your RSVP, your invitation, and possibly the insert of your itinerary. You know, all that information should get prepped in every single envelope. It's nice to have just like a process line. So you grab like RSVP, invite, the extra insert, and stuff it in the envelope, and then put that to the side so that's done. That's the best way to do it. I kind of jumped ahead, so bear with us here. So the next thing is going to be postage. You can anticipate for it to cost anywhere from 50 cents up to $1 per invitation for your postage. And it's best to not do all of your stamps in the post office. Just take one of your envelopes that's pre-filled with everything that's going to be involved in it. You're going to bring that to the post office. You're going to have them weigh it for you, and you're going to ask them how much postage you need to put on these envelopes. They're all going to weigh the same. They might fluctuate by like 0.01 of an ounce, which is very, very minuscule. They're going to tell you how much you need to have for stamps. They're going to say, oh, you need a 50 cent and a 35 cent, you know, for this one envelope, you know, for everything in it. And so once they tell you that, you need to make sure you buy enough. So you might have to buy 50 or 100 of each style stamp to put on both invitations. Once you do that, buy all of your stamps, bring them home, pre-stamp all of your invitations with however many stamps you need. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3. If it's international, it's going to be a lot.
Yes.
You're going to have to put all the stamps on them. I give yourself like a few days, or if you want to estimate a week, because it's something you're doing at nighttime when you're tired, or you need the weekend to do it. And then you're going to want to send these out in the mail, hand them to the post office man or woman, and you're going to have them like stamp approve it for you. It's easier just to hand it to them instead of trying to drop it in one of those drop things. It'll be a little bit messier that way. So walk in and just actually hand it to them and say, like, these just need to be postmarked. And you need to do that 3 to 4 months before your actual wedding day. Because remember, you need that 1 month to 1.5 month time frame to receive your invitations. So you need to take that in account. So I say 3 to 4 months, knowing that you're going to lose a month and a few weeks off of that. So you're going to lose about like 6 weeks off of this 3 to 4 months mark. So you're actually going to get like 2.5 to 3 months worth time for them to look at the schedule, figure it out, send it back to you, and know that they're going to RSVP. This is all based on the fact that you've already sent a save the date. So if you haven't sent them a save the date card, these invitations need to go out like 5 to 6 months prior. So you need to order them like 7 to 8 months prior and push back your timeline. So this is why save the dates are really important. It's as immediately as you know your wedding date, you should send out that save the date so they know, okay, this date, we'll find out more on the time and the locations later, because maybe you don't even have that. You should, but maybe you just want to let them know the date so that they can book it on their calendar immediately, because, you know, people have other vacation time they need to ask off or different schedules, and you need to communicate that earlier as opposed to later, or later people won't be able to come to your wedding day. So this is all reflecting on that timeline that you've already sent the save the date, just so you know, because some people will feel like that feels a little too late to send out the invites, but that's because you've already sent them a save the date. They already have the date on their calendar. They just need to know a little bit more on like hotel bookings and all of that, unless you've already put a wedding website on your RSVP. Wow. Unless you already put a wedding website on your save the date. Sorry, I just totally mixed RSVP and save the date together on that one.
All good.
So I hope that makes sense in that aspect of like the purpose that the save the date serves is so you're not as stressed out about getting the invitations. So it's a little bit less pressure on the invitation side. And for all of that.
Yeah, and I do actually have a question for you. So, because when you go to the post office to get the weight of the invitation itself with the RSVP card in it, do you suggest that they also get the weight of the RSVP card and what type of stamp that would need as well?
That's a fantastic question. That's only if they're going to pre-stamp the RSVP envelopes. A lot of people haven't been, because if you're trying to do more electronic, then you might be putting a stamp on something that's never going to come back to you.
True. Mm-hmm.
So that's up for you to choose. You can do it selectively. Like if you know your grandparents and some of your older family members are going to be traditional and want to mail it back to you, you can get a stamp for them. It's usually just going to be like a 50-cent stamp for those ones. So you do have to accommodate that as well if you want to have a stamp on them, or if you'll also have to put your return address on the envelope for them to return it to. Be it your address or your planner's address who's doing that for you and entering it into the computer system for your electronic tracking of meals and attendees. But what I do want people to know is that you don't have to do the stamp on your RSVP envelope. You could simply just provide it. So if they wanted to mail it back to you, they can, but that way you're not spending money yourself on it. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to encourage people to go more electronic as opposed to send something else back in the mail to you. So,
right. And then I think the other thing I had a question for you on, just as a general recommendation for return addresses. I would think that it would be better to have a label that you have, like just like a sticker of your return address, that you would need to accommodate that weight, correct? Because that would... I don't know if it really puts much of weight on the RSVP card. Isn't really going to have a lot of weight. It's the envelope with all of your invitations that's really going to have the weight. And sometimes it's more about the thickness of it as opposed to the weight itself. Because if it's too thick to feed, like feed through the machine, they're going to charge you more because they have to hand enter it into instead of putting it in the machine, they have to hand enter it themselves. Mm-hmm. So they're going to charge you more for it. And that will reflect in the postage. They'll tell you the shape, size, width, and weight, and that is like your postage pricing. Okay, so good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, so like those extra thick invitations, letterpress invitations, they're going to cost more on buying them, but also in stamps for like for mailing and shipping them. But also things like acrylic invitations or balsa wood, those are going to get even more costly. Balsa wood's pretty light, but it's thicker, but the acrylic is going to be heavier and thicker. So those are all going to again, up the cost on the postage on those too. So all things to take in consideration. I always say, like, and if you're not sure what you want, or if you really are like, I can't spend that much on postal stamps, like I don't want to, maybe order a sample if you can from that wedding website, or just order like 5 or 10 if you can. If you can't, just get one. Do a sample, go weigh it, and be like, okay, this is too heavy, we need to go lighter, or like, this is fine, like we can work with this. Like you just have to give yourself like an extra month of that time for it to come in, to take it, test it, weigh it, see if that works, and then order more to come in, because shipping could take 7 days, it could take 2 weeks. With COVID especially, things are really behind schedule for printing and shipping. So that's where like the FedEx option, they're fast, and if you call your location to make sure you can do pickup as opposed to shipping, they'll tell you how to order that, but they have some like quick turnarounds. You know, they might be able to do it in a few days or that same day for you. So that's where with COVID, that was easier because you knew it to anticipate, because it was right around the block for you to go pick up.
Right.
For all of that. So sorry, that took me a little bit to explain.
No, sorry, because there's a lot within this that I, as a photographer, just simply don't really have a lot of, I don't have my hands in the pot here working anything. I just ask for 2 invitations to photograph them. So
yeah.
So your knowledge on this is just so much better. So thank you. This is why like it's so nice to have you, like, to be able to ask you these questions, because like I don't know, but I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. No, these are just things that I've learned, and like just honestly having a conversation with the local postal services, like how the mail process works. You know, like how are you charged for your stamps? Is it just by how much it weighs, which is typical? But now knowing sometimes it's the size of the envelope. Like if it's a square and not a rectangle, or if it's too big of a rectangle, like they're going to charge you more. And I didn't know that because it doesn't fit in the machines. If it's too thick, they're going to charge you more. Probably the same as if the shape was different, because again, it won't fit in the machine. So knowing how reliant they are on the machine, as opposed to like hand entering and putting into, like their hand sorting it, as opposed to throwing it in the machine and the machine sorts it to whatever distribution needs to go to next. So like just extra work, and then they're going to charge you for that amount of extra work.
Right.
Postage.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining in this week. Next week, we are actually answering your questions right here on the podcast.
Yeah.
So
send them in.
Yes, send them in. We're super excited. Anyways, that's what's happening next week. Thank you for tuning in this week, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.